Okay, so James, we are starting off with questions that we get quite often, which is about filming dangerous wildlife and filming wildlife that's hard to get close to. Often we are filming on foot, so we just wanted to know a little bit more about that, and I think our audience would like to know a little bit more about that. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your background and your experience in walking on foot in the bush with dangerous wildlife. What experience do you have?
Yeah, so I think certainly it does benefit or has benefited us at Black Bean Production in terms of having a bit of experience with regards to knowing animal behavior and certainly walking in the bush. I have been guiding for a number of years, and I kicked off my career at a company called Singita. And I was very fortunate to be based in a very remote part of the Kruger National Park, right on the eastern boundary, where walking was something that we really liked to push with the guests. It really lended itself to walking this particular area. Beautiful Lubombo Mountains, these flat basalt plains, and just incredible diversity with regards to topography and also the wildlife that inhabited that area. So we needed to spend a lot of time on foot. We needed to be competent, and we needed to be able to read animals in order for ourselves to put ourselves into a position where guests could experience these animals on foot, and at the same time we didn't push the comfort levels of these particular animals that we were viewing.
So obviously then when you started Black Bean Productions, you still do private guiding, but you do a lot of trips where you've got to film these animals. So it's obviously assisted our crew to have you as a guide with that experience on the shoots, and I think you've taught a lot of the team more about wildlife and how to give wildlife their space. I think what would be good to hear is maybe a story where you've been filming wildlife in a remote area and you maybe got a bit too close trying to get the shot, and just tell us a little bit about just a story and what you did to kind of stay safe.
Yeah, I think Ollie will remember this one very well. Ollie being our director of photography, and when we initially started this relationship, this professional relationship, because we've known each other our entire lives, he had come from a commercial background, so he had been filming on sets like Survivor and MasterChef, and all of a sudden he was thrown into a very, very different world. And I remember one of the first assignments Ollie and I had. In those days, assignments were rather loose. There wasn't much of a brief, and it was kind of just go out and see what we can create in terms of getting epic wildlife footage and encounters. And again, talking to the area that I used to work in, we used to often track lions on foot, and it's an amazing activity. So decided to take old Captain Caldo off on a lion tracking exercise.
So this was a Black Bean shoot.
So this was a Black Bean shoot, and we, with the help of a tracker, a very, very close friend of mine, Exxon, who is a gentleman I tracked with for a number of years and who is incredibly proficient at tracking lions in that particular area, set off to find the mountain pride, which is a very well-known pride of lions up in this part of Kruger National Park. At that stage they were close to 30 strong, so a big pride of lions, and intimidating even when in the confines of a vehicle. So we ended up tracking these lions and eventually came across them when two of them popped their heads up through the long grass, and all of a sudden we had 3, 4, 5, 6, 17 heads suddenly pop up. And let me tell you, on foot, that sends shivers down your spine when you're in a very remote part of the Kruger National Park, miles away from a vehicle. And I must say, I was just amazed at how Ollie actually reacted. I think if you put a camera in front of his face, or he's got something between himself and his subject, it often helps. But he held his nerve, and that kind of set a precedent for our future working together. And it's actually been a real privilege, working with a number of team members, both freelancers and guys who are involved in black bean productions on a more permanent basis, just being able to guide and work with the team in terms of reading animal behavior, reading different situations, and being able to get the shots that we're looking for without impacting negatively on these animals. And I think it's been great to see the team learn as well, and improve their knowledge and their skill set in this regard.
Okay, so wait, you didn't tell us exactly what happened. So you saw the lions, their heads popped up. It sounds as though you stood your ground. Did they eventually move off, or how did you get back to the vehicle?
So, people have a misconception of cats in the bush, and more often than not, with regards to, my personal encounters, cats will react negatively, and that's putting space between themselves and people. So these cats popped their heads up initially, took one look at us and made a beeline for it. The only times you run into problems with big cats, especially lions, is when they're feeding on a carcass, when you've got a female with young cubs, or if you've got a sick or an injured animal. But more often,
And they're feeling threatened.
And they're feeling threatened, exactly. More often than not, they want to put distance between yourself and them, and that's exactly what they did on this occasion. But it was an interesting encounter because it literally was Ollie's first experience in a very remote part of Africa, and on foot with so many lions can be very unnerving, whether they're coming at you or moving away from you.
And I know that, having gone on a few black bean shoots myself, we've also had some interesting encounters with elephants. Another animal that's amazing to film up close because they are just so beautiful. So in terms of filming elephants, just some tips. If you are maybe in their space and they do give you a warning sign that you maybe got too close, any tips in terms of filming elephants on foot or even from a vehicle?
Yeah, filming elephants on foot or from a vehicle usually isn't an issue. Elephant bulls are a lot easier to approach. You're approaching usually one individual or a small bachelor herd, and typically are a lot more tolerant of you if you are picked up. Now the idea is to try and not get picked up by these animals. They've got an incredible sense of smell, and they can hear. They're pretty short-sighted, so as long as you make sure you're checking the wind direction and you're relatively quiet, you can get quite close and often get some great shots without these animals knowing you're in the area. Breeding herds of elephants can be a little bit more tricky, and one does want to avoid getting too close to these animals on foot. Typically, if you're hosting clients, you would avoid approaching breeding herds of elephants on foot. But if you are looking to get a shot, it's absolutely imperative that you remain unnoticed and do not disturb these animals. And we've had occasions where these animals have picked up our scent, even in a vehicle, and we've had some close calls. And I think what we'll do is we'll actually post a clip of one of the closer calls we had where a cow actually ended up charging the vehicle and made contact with the vehicle completely unprovoked. And again, these things do happen in the bush, so you can't always predict everything that's going to happen, even if you do have a good grasp of animal behavior.
So I think it's important to share sort of like on this topic our outlook at black bean, which has been to be sensitive to animals and their space, never push an animal for a shot or make the animal feel uncomfortable. So being sensitive, and then like you say, it's not predictable, so often being patient. You might go out to track lions and find that you don't find them that day. So being patient, giving animals their space, and then I would think also just adapting every day and realizing that you might have had a plan, but you're going to have to change your plan to fit in with what sightings you're having and what's happening out in the bush.
Yeah, as a film crew, it can often be daunting, especially when you're dealing with wildlife. They're unpredictable. You can't make animals do things so that you can get a great shot. And you need to work with them in order to make sure that you come home with some quality content. So there's a lot of excitement in that as well, in that unpredictability. And that often lends great value to the work that we do, I think. But yeah, you need to be patient, and I think as a team we are ethical, and I think we've built our brand and have a reputation for being ethical. We understand wildlife, and we work to get the shot. We work hard to get the shot, and don't push boundaries in terms of doing anything that's going to jeopardize an animal just to get a shot. So I think that's something that we feel very strongly about, and something that we've stuck to since starting the business.
And yeah, I mean, just to end off, I think the other reason that we do have the footage that we have, two things is that we spend a lot of time on the road and out in the bush, and we do have, we have got the gear and the lenses. Over the years we've learned which ones we need, which has also been helpful.
Yeah, I think what's worked incredibly well for us is traveling relatively light, being able to communicate as a team without actually communicating. So there's a level of understanding, and as I say, the team is now up to speed with regards to being able to predict animal behavior and being able to work as a team to get whatever sequence or shot we need, and making sure that we're using gear that works for various scenarios, and working with gear that's going to lend itself to being able to get the shots that we're looking for. So it's all about teamwork, it's about having patience, and it's really about understanding one subject, and being able to make sure that you can get that shot that you need without interfering with an animal.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll be uploading more lessons from the road soon. That was our first one with James.
Thank you, Sammy.